It has been a dire 48 hours for the Conservative Party. Looking at the council results, they have come in third in terms of council seats to the Liberal Democrats. Staggering losses. Not as large in numbers as last year, simply because of how many seats were up, but they've lost nearly 500 seats, so they've got about a 50% survival rate. They lost about half their councillors. Big gains for Labour, the Liberal Democrats, the Greens, and a raft of left-wing independents. More on that later. In the mayoral elections, there are now, out of the 12 metro mayors in the country, 11 are Labour, ranging from true blue North Yorkshire, home of Harrogate, Richmond, Skipton, and Rishi Sunak's constituency, all the way down to the East Midlands, the West Midlands. Take your pick. Everywhere but Teesside, Labour now control your area. In terms of councils, the Conservatives have lost 10 councils. Labour now have 51 councils after these results. They've picked up 8. The Liberal Democrats picked up 2. The Conservatives have lost councils ranging from Redditch to places like Hartlepool. In short, it's been a disaster. There was a 26-point swing in the Blackpool South by-election, and it's all looking terrible. Or is it? That is the question we're answering on today's edition of Political Paradigms. I'm Toby. Theo's here. Theo, have you been enjoying the results?
Sort of. I mean, I just been updated in the last 5 minutes.
Oh, amazing. And look who's back. Look who's back. It's Sonny. Sonny, hello.
Hey, it's very nice to be back.
How was the subcontinent of Asia?
Yeah, well, it was. I was in India for a month and then Thailand for a month. It was lovely.
Typical gap year stuff.
Yeah, literally, I was like,
It was enjoying.
I just have to. It's kind of part of my rites of passage almost.
See, I've not got to do the whole gap year thing. I need to do that. Maybe I can do it after uni. It's not the same thing, is it? But maybe I will.
I know someone who took 3 gap years after university, so
maybe I can do. Can you do it halfway through your degree? I don't know. Maybe I'll just study.
Yeah, you can. You can do like a year of work placement or something.
Yeah, but it won't be somewhere exotic. I'll probably workplace myself into Parliament or something, knowing me.
Well, actually, saying that, there was someone I met in Goa who their work placement was in Bangalore, which is kind of, I think, like southern India. So, Toby, you might end up, somewhere exotic like Grimsby.
I mean, Grimsby, southern India, wherever you want me to go, I'll always embrace it, and the podcast will still be being recorded. Right, so on to the local elections. I want to take this in phases because there's so much information. Top line, in my view, my top line take is this election doesn't tell us anything we didn't already know from the polling, and I don't think too many of our sort of prior views have been upset by it. There have been some surprises here or there. Everything is basically how we thought it would be. The mayoral elections we'll go to first. We'll go through them. The first one, we've got 2 semi-residents of London on the pod. Sonny fully, really. Sadiq Khan enjoyed a swing to Labour in London. He did underperform his national party, as we expected, because he's fairly unpopular, but a comprehensive victory against Susan Hall. My question we'll go to Sonny first, is why do you think there was such a panic in the day before the election? All these pundits and all these sort of commentators were like, we think it's going to be close. We think Susan Hall's going to win. I don't know where it came from. She got nowhere close. What are your thoughts on the mayoral election, Sonny?
I think it is. I mean, I feel like Sadiq Khan is in some ways in the same bracket as Keir Starmer, and they're both not massively popular figures. They've just very fortunate to be, in that position at what is, one of the Conservative Party's lowest points for a very long time. I think it kind of just shows the narrative of the country, the fact that people aren't voting. Maybe it's not as much as like the 2020 US elections, but it is kind of they're not voting for Labour, they're just not voting for Conservative. So I mean, I don't make much of it, but it makes sense to what I would rationally think would happen or would be quite likely to happen.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, when people were saying Susan Hall might win, I was like, I mean, that would have been such a bizarre fluke. And it probably wouldn't have been sort of extractable to the national environment when Labour are winning everywhere else. Would have been very weird if Labour had won North Yorkshire but lost London. Theo, it's widely understood that Susan Hall was a shit candidate. However, if they'd picked a really good, let's say they ran Rory Stewart or something, is London fundamentally out of reach for the Conservatives now, or do you think they could win it in a few years?
In a few years, potentially with a kind of Johnsonite candidate, but as you say, they haven't been putting up candidates who have that same magnitude of personality. And of course, that person in particular went on to kind of personally take a big hand in the current damage that's been done to the Tory reputation. So the likes of Susan Hall and Sean Bailey, who I actually met the other day, they're not quite going to cut it. And I think Sonny's right. The macro political climate, the large trends we're seeing in the country in terms of how people are voting, without the mass, it's basically hopeless for them in London, and they know it. Perhaps maybe that's why they field candidates such as Susan Hall.
So other metro mayoral elections, safe and even landslide Labour wins in a lot of the existing mayoral sort of seats. Andy Burnham in Manchester, Steve Rotherham in Liverpool, Salford, South Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, all of that as expected. Now, got a little bit more interesting in the North East. This is the beginning of a running story, really. Jamie Driscoll, incumbent Labour mayor for a smaller area, sort of left the Labour Party after he was deselected by Labour and ran to the Labour candidate's left. Now, the Labour candidate won clearly. Kim McGuinness clearly won the North East election, but with no party label, no infrastructure, Jamie Driscoll managed nearly 30% of the vote in the North East running to Labour's left, and I think he nearly won Newcastle itself outright. I thought this was very interesting, and it fits with a trend we've seen in these elections. My take is this spells trouble for Labour once they are in government. Sonny, what's the significance of Labour's base already starting to splinter in ways like this?
I think it probably shows an aspect that inside the Labour Party, maybe Keir Starmer's not as popular as a lot of us think. I think the Labour Party over the last probably year and a half, maybe 2 years or however long, have been quite good, if not very good maybe, at showing quite a kind of solid base and kind of removing people like Corbyn is kind of trying to create this image of, it's a Keir Starmer's Labour Party. This is very, we know what we're doing. We're a very solid unit, if you see what I mean. This splintering shows that, the Labour Party's, it's very human. It's quite susceptible maybe to splintering in many ways, because we're trying to see this quite large political shift from what is quite a solidly left a Labour Party to a quite centre-left Labour Party. So yeah, I think it shows that there is still maybe potential murmurings of not happy Labour members and parts of the party which are much more left than Starmer and his camp.
Yeah, I thought Jamie Driscoll actually made a very good point. He said his vote was for him, which obviously it was because there was no label, and the Labour candidate's vote was basically for Labour, which makes sense to me. And obviously it's the power of the Labour brand when lots of voters want to vote Labour and sort of defeat the Conservatives. Other marquee mayoral elections, don't get me wrong, almost all of these were incredible for Labour. East Midlands, lots of swing seats in the general election there. Clear victory for Claire Ward. Really impressive. Even more impressive, staggering, in fact, North Yorkshire. Now, for context, North Yorkshire was won by 30 points by the Conservative Party in 2019. It is the second most prosperous area of the country, and it's where Rishi Sunak's seat is. Now, I've lived up here most of my life. It is not Labour. Outside York, there are no Labour seats. I don't think there have ever really been any Labour seats. Maybe on the coast, when New Labour was in power. But other than that, this is huge. A nearly double-digit win for the Labour candidate. in North Yorkshire, David Scaife. He did that by absolutely blowing the doors off in York and breaking even in like the rural, affluent sort of areas that the Tories normally win. Was slightly behind the Tories outside York. Huge result. Staggering stuff. Theo, I mean, when I saw this, I was like, if they're losing here, I don't know how they could, it defied belief for me. Am I missing something, or does this just speak to how badly the Conservatives are doing?
You're absolutely right. I mean, this whole election cycle across the board, I agree with you completely, shows pretty much what we were thinking. The one exception is that I was not ready to believe that the Tories could really win in there, or sorry, could really lose big in their heartlands. It was kind of the moment we were waiting to see, can they really flip the red wall seats in 2019? And then it happened, and that threshold has been crossed. So yes, I think it is quite astonishing to see, and it confirms that despite, election results in the local elections and mayoral elections, being kind of not directly transferable to the general election, it is still quite astonishing because it shows a precedent has been broken, I suppose.
Certainly. Shout outs to Ben Houchen in Tees Valley. 16-point swing to Labour there, which would be enough for them to pick up all the seats in the area that they needed. But he did win. He won by double digits. A really impressive personal vote for a popular incumbent mayor. I think it's safe to say if Ben Houchen didn't exist, that mayoral seat would have easily gone to Labour. Finally on the mayors, Andy Street, expected to cling on in the end, really. He lost very, very narrowly to Richard Parker. In terms of the media narrative, people have been treating this as proves the Tories are losing. It's actually an overperformance by Andy Street. Labour should have won by quite a bit in the West Midlands. Again, Andy Street, very popular local mayor. It's things like North Yorkshire that are sort of more staggering. But Theo, should we read anything? I mean, it's a big loss, right? Andy Street, a big figure, a moderate Tory. Do you think he has a future in the Conservative Party after this defeat?
I don't see who would want a future in the Tory Party after what's about to happen.
That's very harsh. That's very harsh. So what you're saying?
No,
you're saying Andy Street should dump them now? Is what you're saying?
I mean, I don't know what goes on in Andy Street's head, but I think anyone, Tory Party's not a good place to be right now. That's I think very clear. And again, mayoral elections slightly different because it's kind of centered around a personality. There's a lot more to do with the culture and community of the city. So anything we really see that deviates from the national trends in mayoral elections, I think, can be put down to that, such as Ben Houchen. But even in the case of people like Andy Street, it's not enough, or maybe the personality adds to it. I don't know.
So let's talk about councils. The Conservatives have lost nearly half their council seats. Again, don't just look at the pure numbers, because last time they lost 1,000, but actually the results are similar this time. It's just different things are up. They lost Dudley. That's gone to no overall control. Lost Gloucester. That's gone to no overall control. Labour have gained Hartlepool. Very symbolic, considering last time these seats were up. Labour have gained Hyndburn. Labour have... I mean, there's just so many results here. Labour have gained Milton Keynes. That is crucial for a general election. Conservatives have lost majority control of North East Lincolnshire. What? Exclamation point. Labour have gained Nuneaton and Bedworth. I mean, these results. Labour have gained Redditch. Huge. Labour have gained Rushmore. Huge. There's just some staggering results here. Gained Tamworth, gained Thurrock. The Liberal Democrats have gained Tunbridge Wells. The Liberal Democrats, don't sleep on the Liberal Democrats, actually. They did quietly very, very well, and it makes me confident they'll pick up lots of seats in the general election. Quick bit of mathematics here, and then I'll hand over to you two guys. This is sort of the nerdy bit. The national projected vote share is a extrapolation of, if this was a general election, how would the country have voted? Much has been said from pundits, because when they do that, Labour were only on 35%, and the Tories were where they are in the polls, 26%, but Labour was further down than they are in the polls, at the expense of independent parties, at the expense of the Greens, the Liberal Democrats, and a lot of pundits have been saying, this proves the polls are wrong, and Labour are on course for not on course for a majority. Not so. Given where the Tories are losing, Labour is still on course for a big majority. Here's where it gets complicated. So first of all, you can't extrapolate directly. The Liberal Democrats won't be nearly 20% in terms of the vote in the general election. The Greens won't be on 12%. The Residents' Association doesn't stand in general elections. All these independents won't be as prominent in a general election. All that, and Labour needing a much smaller lead because of vote efficiency, means the idea that this proves the polls are wrong is for the birds. In fact, opinion polls tell you more than this vote share about a general election. It's a very different kettle of fish. So there is a lot of copium going around. I will say that much. However, what is true is, in terms of weak spots for the Labour Party, they did gain less councils than they thought. The Tories lost, the maximum. Labour didn't gain as much because smaller parties like the Greens and some independents, sort of George Galloway associates, different parties to the left of Labour, they were big players in the Andy Street race as well, taking a lot of votes off Labour. There is, in Labour sort of safe areas, a lot of discontent. Now, that isn't going to lose them a ton of seats in a general election, but it does speak to a fracturing of Labour's base. Their vote is softer than it could be. It will cause more problems for them in government and after the general election than during it, though it could cause them some sort of regionalised headaches. Looking at that big picture, Theo, do you buy at all the idea that this election proves we're on course for a hung parliament, or do you think it is entirely cope?
Sorry, you mean, is it cope that, do I think there's going to be a hung parliament?
Yeah,
is that what you're saying?
Pundits and Tories saying, oh, the vote share from the locals means it's actually a hung parliament and the polls are wrong.
Well, it's pure cope, isn't it? Because as I really just said that. As we discussed last week in person, Labour, in any places, they may be making losses to those on the left or right of them, where voters may be defecting, or even over the war in Gaza, generally are making losses where they can afford to. And people seem to have a really hard time wrapping their heads around the fact that in first past the post, a 12% resurgence for reform would normally mean 0 seats. The only seat they could potentially have left is probably Lee Anderson. I was actually reading an interesting article the other day about how parties like Reform and even the other small parties that seem to be threatening the main parties the pundits like to cling on because it makes good narrative are more spectral. They're not really fully fledged parties. They're kind of like incorporeal beings that seem to act more as an opinion poll and a medium of dissatisfaction than an actual tangible party. I mean, if you think of Reform, I know you asked about Labour, but I think I'm making the bigger point that when we see smaller parties chipping away at the main party's vote share, it could potentially make 0 impact to the actual number of seats we have at the end of the day, because it's first past the post at the end of the day. And yes, Labour may hemorrhage a few seats potentially to the Liberal Democrats. The Liberal Democrats are a small party who can win seats, but I would still say anyone who says that there's going to be a hung parliament instead of a Labour majority, even if it's not massively sizable, is completely coping.
It's cope. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from Theo. It's cope. Sonny, what are you coping with? How are you? What stands out to you most out of sort of this overall local elections picture? Are there any stories we're not picking up on?
Oh, very good question.
He's thinking. He's thinking, folks.
I'm pondering, some might say.
Now a message from our sponsor.
Are you coping with local council results and extrapolating it to a hung parliament?
Try Xanax.
No, bro, I swear, bro, the Labour vote share in the national projected vote means we're not going to lose our majority, bro, I swear.
Nah, bro, shy Tories 1992, bad polling, bro.
Bro, there's always a vote error, bro. We're going to win, bro. I swear, bro. There's no, hang on. Repeat after me. There's no enthusiasm for Keir Starmer on the doorstep. The other one is...
If you go around and you talk to voters, there's just no enthusiasm for Starmer.
The other one is, Labour hasn't sealed the deal yet.
Neither of the Tories, to be honest.
We've lost North Yorkshire, but Labour hasn't sealed the deal.
No, I think this election is going to really test the ability of the Conservative Party to just absolutely waffle their way to anything. I mean, it's, I think they should try and resurrect Dominic Cummings and just give him crack and make him write anything down and see what he produces. But yeah, oh no, I think the local elections just show what we're probably looking in for. I mean, I'm not sure of the numbers, but I'm guessing if it's like other local elections, the turnout wasn't either particularly amazing.
Oh, it was shocking.
Which the Tories might. Yeah, it was probably like 30% or something.
Yeah.
So the Tories would probably be like, every Conservative voter doesn't really care about the local elections, so we'll still win because when everyone else votes, they'll vote for us.
The silent majority stands with Rishi, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, all the numbers say no. Everything that we could categorically, factually point to says no, but the silent majority stands with Rishi Sunak. And Labour doesn't have a plan, so I don't know what they're going to do.
The one I heard is sorry, carry on.
I was going to say I think it's a bit of doom. I think the only interesting thing is the kind of like the slight splintering, and I agree with Theo that the Lib Dems might get a few more seats than we thought, maybe, or not even that. Maybe the Lib Dems would win seats that we thought Labour would win.
I mean, honestly, just because people just don't seem to understand that these numbers don't mean anything. I mean, we need Rishi Sunak to get out a flip sheet and explain this to us on his YouTube channel, like he's been doing for the past couple of months, just to get our heads around it.
Do you know what the other one is? It's what this shows. We know how unpopular the Tories are. We know how badly Rishi Sunak's doing in the polls. So, and this election is entirely consistent with voters voting other parties where they can, but fundamentally voting against the Conservatives. In a general election, you would assume some of these Green voters, Lib Dem voters, and the rest will go to Labour, and we're seeing that in the general election polling. It's very weird. It's just.
I think it's. Oh, sorry. I was going to say that I think in kind of going on what you said, I think people in the local elections vote differently than in general elections because they'll be thinking, oh, I'm just dealing with my local council, not the government. So it's more likely for people, for parties like Lib Dems and Greens to do better.
So I called in about this idea because on Friday night, there were a lot of pundits going, oh my God, Labour are only ahead by 9 points on this local election metric. This must mean it's a hung parliament, the polls are wrong, etc., etc. And they're all flapping about it, like, oh my God, Keir Starmer hasn't sealed the deal, all the rest of it. We had similar after last year's local elections, actually. So I called into LBC, and here's what happened, speaking to Ian Dale.
To Toby, who's a new caller in Harrogate. Hi, Tony. Toby.
Good evening, Ian. I hope you're well.
Good, thank you.
So I just thought we might be over-extrapolating a little bit when we're looking at the projected national vote share. Now, obviously, it is a very important measure, and it tells us some interesting things about how these local elections are going. And, I've been very sympathetic to the idea we could see some narrowing in the polls coming up to the election. But I have heard multiple analysts say, when you're looking at the general election in the big picture, the sort of projected national vote is arguably less useful than, your average opinion poll, purely because it's a different shaped electorate. Parties like the Liberal Democrats are on figures they won't be in terms of sort of percentage of the vote, approaching 20%. There's lots of smaller parties that just aren't a factor in a general election. You've got a bigger presence for reform. And I just think taking the projected national vote share, which is similar to last year, when we're seeing massive double-digit swings in by-elections and every electoral indicator from Rishi Sunak's approval ratings to the standing of the party on the major issues. Labour has a 15-point lead on economic competence. I just don't think we can extrapolate that and go, Labour aren't going to win a majority. They almost certainly will, unless something dramatic changes, which of course it could.
How did I do, Theo?
Got to plug the podcast, so you get a 0.
Yeah.
I thought you did. Yeah. Apart from that, I thought you did great.
Yeah,
that was great.
That was just on a random walk, and as I was going, I saw a load of rowdy teenagers. I was like, I swear to God, if they start making noise while I'm speaking to Ian Dale on LVC.
Should have asked them to come on the podcast next week.
What, the rowdy teenagers?
No, Ian Dale.
Oh, I'd love
or
to get
the rowdy
Ian.
Teenagers, either will do.
Come on, Ian Dale.
Yeah, both.
No, I have been thinking that we do need to get a guest on the podcast at some point.
Well, can you not use your deep state contacts to get Rory Stewart on, Theo?
Oh my God! I think Rory Stewart would be the number one guest. If I could have anyone in the world, it would be Rory Stewart.
I
think.
want Rory Stewart, and can we do local elections punditry with Rory Stewart,
No, because the
please?
thing is, I can so imagine Rory Stewart going on the podcast of three teenagers who's never cracked 1,000 views in an episode. Like that's something I can imagine him doing. Do you know what I mean?
That is Rory Stewart behaviour.
Yeah,
Unironically, that is Rory Stewart behaviour. I quite agree with you. So
I'm sure we can work something out.
I'm sure we can. So, have you ever met him? I've never met him.
I've never met him,
Love to
unfortunately.
meet him.
So, what does this all mean for the election? My view is we're on course for a big Labour majority. It does look, considering the likes of Suella Braverman have come out and said this, the Tory rebels basically realised there's no point in trying to challenge Sunak. Let him own this, let him own the defeat. I think we are now on a glide path to an October or a November general election. Be very surprised if it was summer. I'm still not convinced it's going to be January. I think we're heading for sort of post-conference season. He'll sort of call the election at conference and go from there. We're hearing murmurs now that the finances are so bad there won't even be more tax cuts. There'll just be the promise of tax cuts. There may be interest rate cuts. There may not be. All of this sort of very marginally shapes the backdrop to the election. Theo, what does the Conservative Party do now? Just wait for what's coming and brace?
I suppose, yeah, sit tight, take the brace position. No, look, they're sitting ducks right now. If you watch any of the videos from that channel, Joe, not saying I watch Joe often, but every time there's
He
a
does.
Tory defeat, they put forward these amazing compilations of Tories just getting grilled on TV, trying to somehow defend, especially like the chairman trying to like explain away the results. And half the time it was, oh, well, all the results haven't come in yet, so we don't know.
Guys,
It kind of, I
Keir
suppose,
Starmer
demonstrates their
hasn't
mindset.
Keir Starmer hasn't sealed the deal yet, guys.
Look, I know what you're hinting at, which is there going to be a leadership challenge? Ostensibly, it seems there's not going to be a leadership challenge.
Yeah.
There seems to be some cognizance of the need for cohesion, I suppose, to minimize the extent of defeat, though I'd say minimize the extent of defeat is not something they're in a position to do. But I think it's the moment where you're paralyzed and you're just waiting for it to happen. I don't give takes a lot on this podcast, but I think the right thing to do, I don't see how anyone could disagree with this, would be to call an election as soon as possible. I suppose that's one thing I'm aligned with Starmer on. But whenever they are called, the result will reflect many of the trends that were really confirmed by these local elections, more so than the by-elections that have been happening sporadically since we started the podcast.
My favourite one is, the Tories held Harlow. They held like one council that was important. So they were like, this means Keir Starmer's going to lead into a hung parliament. Sonny, any final thoughts on the local election results? Do you see the Conservative Party doing anything different between, in the next 6 months or so? Or are they just going to kind of get on with the job, quote unquote, and wait for what's coming?
I'll be honest, I think the only way they could win the election is if they call a military junta and just
Oh, the Malaysian
take
outcome.
complete control.
Sort of
I mean, obviously I'm joking. Honest to God, I hope that never happens. But I don't see what the Conservatives could do. I mean, like you said, like there's not really enough money to do tax cuts. It's not like they can physically do anything to the country. It's not like they've, if they had a year or a year and a half or something, they could go, right, we need to just do something really great. We're going to do, I don't know, they could say free school meals. Off the top of my head, they have no blockbuster legislation to create. They have literally nothing at their disposal except for useless slogans and Rishi Sunak's incredibly dry riz.
Hold on, what about
and in-ring
Rwanda?
trainers. I mean, like, Rwanda, but that's not gonna. I mean, yeah, I guess that's the closest thing that they have. I mean, they've spent £500 million or something on it, and there's not a single plane in the air. It's not like that's been a success either. Sorry.
But they might get a boat. They might get one plane off in the next 8 weeks. Woohoo!
I want Rishi Sunak there with his
ticket
camera
17.
crew recording it and saying, "This is the plan we have. This is what."
This is the change of Britain. This is the removal of small
Just waving
boats.
to the plane as it flies off.
Yeah, but no, I think also like their reputation again is just in such tatters that they can't really promise anything. You're like, yeah, promise whatever you want, mate. You could promise, I don't know, a gold Ferrari to every single voter. It's not going to do anything. They could promise. I mean, if they promise 5 biscuits to every person in the country, I don't think they'd even be able to do that.
I mean, they can't afford to, can they?
That too, yeah. I mean, geez, it would bankrupt the nation. So yeah,
Bankrupt it more.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Bankrupt it more.
Yeah. True,
Theo like has sleepless nights watching like the national debt clock up on his computer, don't you think?
There's this great website you can literally watch the national debt in real time, like a YouTube subscriber count, just like go up and down.
Theo,
what's the website called?
Yeah,
when I'm trying to pull an all-nighter, I just have that on. When I'm sleeping.
You're like the fiscal responsibility. The fiscal irresponsibility must end.
Yeah.
I'm voting
Or
Labour.
even better, watch people in the Bank of England in real time measure prices.
I'm voting Labour to restore fiscal sanity to the country.
Yeah.
Where's that voter? I'm still trying to find the Rachel Reeves enthusiast, like that one voter that's like, I'm voting Labour because of Rachel Reeves's fiscal rules.
I'm sure there's one out there. There's one of everyone out there.
Do you think are you that voter, Theo? Are you like, I'm voting Labour for fiscal rules?
I'm just saying that voter probably is out there. I mean, if there are people who vote for Count Binface, then there are people who vote Labour because of Rachel Reeves' fiscal responsibility.
Oh yeah, congratulations to Count Binface, who beat Britain First in London. So well done.
So, I mean, it's like, I'm sorry, what type of time are we living in when literally just almost doing practically nothing extreme to the economy is good? Like, you look at the Conservative Party in the last 3 years, I mean, £60 billion hole in the economy, thanks to Liz Truss, 100 and something billion pounds lost because of Brexit. Well, cheers. What do Labour have to do? Just very little. Oh my God! Wow, they're geniuses. What have they done? Wow, they've done something magical to this country. Like, what is going on? It's like, no, they're just not complete idiots. I mean, it's wrong. Yeah, exactly. Rachel Reeves might be one of our best chances for a while because she just hasn't done stupid tax cuts or something ridiculous, or elected their dog as their chief financial advisor.
As Sun Tzu said, never interrupt your enemy when he's in the process of destroying himself.
That's straight from the book of Keir Starmer, that one.
Keir Starmer walking around with the art of war.
I was watching, in one breast pocket, it's that, and in the other breast pocket, I have heard he does this, he carries a list of marginal constituencies with him everywhere.
Like a vision board, just to keep him motivated.
We will win Milton Keynes. Like,
we up at night, kind of like just like rocking back and forth, going, be reading off the list like a prayer.
Yeah, do you know what it is though? It's so funny. I was watching Keir Starmer sort of react to all these results, and I will say, I looked and I was like, this is not a man heading for like a landslide victory, but ladies and gentlemen, it is. It is real. Keir Starmer is going to be our overlord. This is happening. You are in the Joker timeline. The greatest mandate of the sort of 21st century in UK politics will land in Keir Starmer's lap in a matter of months. And it'll be so funny because I imagine if it is a landslide, it's looking more likely than not, but who knows? On that election night, Keir Starmer will probably be looking at all these seats, just very dryly ticking them off on his whiteboard. There won't be any cheering or just like, yeah, got that one, got that.
And we're gonna find out that Putin has weapons of mass destruction. Oh no, not this again.
We're getting flashbacks.
Keir Starmer starts a nuclear war, week 1. Oh man, and he'd handle it calmly and methodically, like everything else.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you remember when in 2019 there was, I can't remember which paper, but one of the spreadsheets was Johnson and I think it was his girlfriend at the time, who's now his wife, just like jumping up and down when they won one of those Labour seats. You just see it the same thing with Keir Starmer, just like sitting in the corner with like a glass of milk, just going like really slow, just ticking like, yep.
Soy milk.
Soy milk. And then he's standing at number 10 the next day going, it's really dry way. It's like, this is a mandate from the people. It's now time to change the country.
This is exactly what it will
And you
be. It will be.
And you're just like, oh my God, this
This
is
is
the best man we can make. Like, this is the man who's going to save us from the tyranny of the Conservative Party.
This is a real mandate, a vote of confidence in a changed Labour Party, and now we will go forward and change the country.
Sorry, I don't know why, but that just reminded me of a Dalek from Doctor Who.
Toby's Starmer impression is just raise your pitch slightly and hold your nose.
Oh yeah, Theo. Before we go, do your Rishi Sunak big fan of the pod impression quickly.
Hi boys, great to be here. I'm a big fan of the pod. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
You think in a few months' time we'll be able to get Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng on too?
Oh, I'd love it.
Disgraced at this point.
Right guys, spill the tea. When did it start?
Oh my God.
And on that note,
Just Liz Truss just Liz Truss with a blank face going, I really don't think I did anything bad to the country. You know, it was the Bank of England getting in the way.
Labour,
The
Liz.
budget of the Office of Budget Responsibility telling me, it's like, what is this IMF thing telling me what I can and cannot do? It's like, what are you going on about? A bit mad, to be honest.
I'm sure we will. Look, there'll be plenty of washed-up Tory politicians in the next year after January 2025. It's going to be.
Oh, don't stop saying January 2025. Awful.
Guys, buy my Team Jan 2025 t-shirts down below.
I will actually.
So
This,
miserable.
if we're still on this stupid podcast at Christmas and we still don't know who's won the general election, I swear. Can you imagine? We're just still waiting.
Look, honestly, I'm still Team Jan 2025, but it's merely down right now to Sunak's psychology. As we've seen, there's no political, economic, or historical factors other than some kind of black swan event that could really change that. I think it's all down to what goes on in his head. Also, factional divides in the Tory party. I think the only way he could face a leadership challenge is if he tries to go for Jan 2025 and they're like, kick him out and the person who wins will call an election.
Well, the thing I've heard is so many of them are retiring, they'll be annoyed at him because they want to leave Parliament and get on with their new jobs.
Yeah, did you see that clip of the MP?
Waiting.
There was a clip of the Tory MP saying he thinks it's going to be September because he's booked a skiing trip for them or something, or he's booked some sort of holiday. Yeah, and so they're like, so September is like, I bloody hope so. I've just paid for it. So
yeah, that
it was something. Don't quote me on that because I've got
Sunak booked a skiing holiday for September.
Who did?
Sorry?
Sunak? Did you say Sunak booked a skiing?
No, someone else.
No. It's a retiring MP who is saying that he's planning to go somewhere in September.
This is
So
true,
we'll
by the
go
way.
kind of-
I feel like with the state the Tory party's in, if average MPs, the grunts were aware when the election was, like the whole country would know.
Yeah, so it is, like you say, Theo, the entire country is being held hostage to Rishi Sunak's psychology. That's it. It's as simple as that.
Great stuff.
Jeremy Hunt has gone on record saying he doesn't know. So literally no one knows but Rishi Sunak when this election is going to be. What a way to run a country. I mean, I was in favour of getting rid of the Fixed Terms Parliaments Act, but this is... Oof. There really are downsides. Maybe we should have kept it. All right, folks. Great pod. Huge fan of the pod, guys. And all my impressions are just go nasal.
Yeah.
Well, it tells you something about our politicians.
I mean, we do have very nasal politicians these days.
We do. We have all our politicians are literally like the actually kidding class. All of them.
They are. Well, actually, I think you'll find Labour is not doing so well. I heard a rumour that Keir Starmer hasn't.
All right.
Keir Starmer hasn't sealed the deal, guys. Shout out to the Daily Mail that didn't mention the local elections on Sunday morning, but did mention Angela Rayner's house again. Incredible.
Oh my God.
The dedication to the meme is just phenomenal. Should we title this podcast "Angela Rayner has questions to answer about her house"?
That will really get the Tories over.
Will really increase our
To
right.
be fair, if you want to ensure you get a bunch of views, just title it something that someone who still votes Tory will be looking for.
Labour are in chaos. Starmer faces
The end of Labour ?
Labour not sealing the deal? ?
Rishi Sunak, the second coming. That would really work, wouldn't it?
Rishi Bros, are we so back? Finance Bros, are we back? Can you imagine?
Historic resurgence for Sunak.
Imagine Rishi, yeah, and the whole thing is just based on Teesside, like a whole podcast going Teesside shows that Keir Starmer will lose.
We'll just get like callers in from Teesside. It's just like, I've lived in Eastern Teesside all my life, and I'm so proud. And it's like the rest of the country has just voted Labour, and they're like, Teesside for life.
Teesside.
Gonna be like,
I mean, the funny thing is,
gonna be like, sorry, go ahead.
the funny thing is, Ben Houchen came out and was like, "Yeah, loads of my voters told me they're voting Labour in the general election."
He's quite popular. He's like a local born and bred lad.
Yeah,
So
he's a very good, effective. He's an effective political communicator, authentic politician. There have been questions about, I'll get sort of Labour Twitter coming after me because there've been loads of questions raised about him. But yeah, he's a really popular local figure who's won a personal mandate, which is probably good for local politics, right? The idea that you can do your own thing and it's not just about Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer.
I'm right.
Damn right. It is funny though that almost everywhere in the country now has a Labour mayor. It's like, what?
I mean, did you see the actual video of Sadiq Khan's acceptance speech?
Oh my god, yeah.
It's loud.
Did you see Susan Hall come out and be like, I hope Sadiq stops patronising us? Absolutely.
Whatever defence you can come up with, I guess.
Yeah. It was obviously... have you guys watched Star Wars?
No, what's that?
So it was... obviously, it was May the 4th, and they were sort of memeing Emperor Palpatine, because they were going... Because obviously it was ULEZ, and Sadiq Khan won and did really well, and even saw, like, no slippage in areas where ULEZ has annoyed people. So either people didn't mind ULEZ, or they liked it. I think it's more likely that they just weren't thinking about ULEZ when they voted. But anyway, I saw a meme, it was like, prepare to witness the full power of an ultra-low emissions zone. There's a picture of Sadiq Khan. It's very funny. I think you'll find that it's very ultra-low emissions zone when the votes arrive. Etc., etc. All right, thanks, guys, and we'll see you next week. Are you both with me again next week? Is the trio back?
Yeah, it should be.
The gang is back together.
It's going to be so boring next week compared to this week. But we
have to start actually talking about Teesside and Angela Rayner's house.
Oh, if that's the only story next week, I will again be daubing the clown makeup. I have to start.
It's gonna be a good 10 months with you guys up to Jan 2025.
But yeah, but then it's gonna be like surely it's gonna be like a month.
Yeah, guys, can't wait for another 10 months of this.
Will we still be going into February if that's the case? Because we'll have to cover like Labour starting government, won't we? So we'll be like, Keir Starmer assembled his cabinet today on the 31st of January 2025. Rishi Sunak refused to resign and had to be escorted from the building.
Oh, is that a grey hair on my head?
We'll be middle-aged. Yeah, Rishi Sunak announced the election would be held in 2028, pledging we needed more...
Rishi Sunak stopped being our Prime Minister after he died at the age of 90.
More tax cuts, he promised.
He promised 4 tax cuts in the last month, and he's raised the taxes.
And also, Rishi Sunak announced an end to all income tax and saw the Tory vote share plunge by 2 points.
You think Rishi Sunak is going to move to Teesside and just stand there and going, I am still your Prime Minister? And he just never leaves the area of Teesside, just determined that this is... The rest of the UK was corrupt, except for Teesside.
Yeah, but it's going to be so funny when, like I say, the swing in Teesside would mean every Tory MP in that area would lose their seat. So they're still...
So that doesn't even work.
So they're all gonna
move to like the Outer Hebrides and just claim this one little like clump of grass.
All these
and be like, I will be Prime Minister here. Guys, no one can stop me.
Guys, it's never been more Sunak over. They lost in North Yorkshire. I can't emphasise enough. This is like, yeah, it's crazy. Okay, it's just crazy. Guys, I have a Labour mayor. What the hell? This doesn't happen. We're the bit of the north that don't speak with accents. and like everyone's really snobby about the people who speak with accents. It's like Surrey, but north of Leeds. Okay, it's the poshest market towns, fields full of sheep. It's mostly sheep. It's just places like this do not vote Labour.
But you don't even have a Whole Foods.
No, we don't in Harrogate. Actually, do
No,
we?
I'm
Maybe
kidding.
we do. Maybe
Me
we
and
do.
Toby were looking for a Whole Foods in London last week. I just had to show him.
It was something else. No, we don't have a Whole Foods. We have a Holland and Barrett, which I love.
Oh, there you go. That's how you know you're in a Tory/Lib Dem scene.
Yeah. Apparently, it sounds like the Lib Dems mayoral candidate won Harrogate outright, which is quite funny. So that means my MP is probably in trouble.
Oh, well, you should have gone and spoken to him when I told you to.
He's long gone, mate. He's not long for this world. The sign of these results.
Yeah, I think the only way that a Conservative MP right now, unless they're the MP for like old people's homes, to keep his seat next year is to just switch to Labour. Like, imagine if 150 MPs, Conservative MPs, are like, yeah, we're just actually switching to Labour, and we don't even need an election, and Keir Starmer becomes Prime Minister, or maybe like 200, and they're just like, why'd you do it? It's like, I want a job next year, so I thought might as well. I know what's happening.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do it now.
Careerists.
To be fair, they could all switch to Labour.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If they all just switch to Labour,
back to Tory after the election.
Careerists, it's now time to infiltrate Labour instead of the Conservatives. You heard it here first. Or calling all careerists, the foreseeable future, Labour is your party. Hedge your bets and maybe join Reform as well.
it's one or the other.
Yeah, those are the two relevant parties now. All right, folks, thanks very much, and I'll see you next week where we'll talk lots about Angela Rayner's house.
Thank you very much.
Theo's going to be rummaging through the bins in Angela Rayner's old house, aren't you, Theo?
Already on it.
Yeah.
Calling up my A-team.
This is the scoop that will bring Labour down.
Are we still recording?
About to stop.